here. It is the Austrian Grand Prix. It's round 9 of this Formula One season in 2021. And since the start of the 2020 season, we have now celebrated 52 weeks on the road with Formula One, but we've gone a step softer. So it's C5, C4 and C3, the softest compounds in the Pirelli range. And the grid then for the Austrian Grand Prix sees Max Verstappen take his 4th pole at Paul di Resta, but he's got new challenges if he is to take another victory.
Absolutely, Crofty. He's nailed it, hasn't he? He's absolutely got himself in the best position. But who said Formula One could be predictable? We have different tyres, but we have a different lineup on the grid. We've got Lando Norris lining up.
Choice: Leclerc, Ricciardo, Alonso and Giovinazzi going on the mediums, Raikkonen on the hards, Ocon, Latifi, Schumacher and Mazepin on the mediums. In the top 10, if you get into the top 10 in Q3 in qualifying, you start on the tyre you set your fastest lap on in Q2. That's what Pierre Gasly has to do the next few days, but for now, let's turn our attention to 71 laps around the Red Bull Ring. If you're Lando Norris, you're starting on the front row for the first time ever. Are you battling for the lead straight away, or what are you doing? And it's lights out and away we go. It's Verstappen ahead of Norris, Perez ahead of Hamilton, and Perez closes off the thread of Hamilton, and into turn 1 we go. Look up behind, but Max Verstappen's through safely, as is Norris, Perez, and then comes Bottas and Hamilton, and they're making up places already. Hamilton ahead then of Bottas. Gasly has just dropped back a little bit as well, as towards turn 3 we go now. Max Verstappen in the... He's the filling in a sandwich between Mick Schumacher on the outside and Antonio Giovinazzi on the inside, and Giovinazzi clips his front right.
He didn't know where to go, did he? You could see him. He was going outside, he was going inside, and the hash just going up the inside, and you can see how much stronger the rear of the car is versus the front. But I was surprised to see the wheel. Driver
steward about that penalty for Sebastian Vettel and why other drivers didn't get a penalty, because so many were involved backing up through the last couple of corners, and he said it was very difficult to pinpoint exactly who was at fault, but Sebastian Vettel definitely was. Right, let's look at the starts. And it was a decent getaway from the front too.
Yeah, Norris actually getting a slightly better start, but it's a grip that Verstappen's got through here, the compliance that he's got over the bump, and he just gets through the corner, extends that gap, and you can look, he's hunting.
Mercedes, well, swapping places there. Bottas got himself into a bit of a pickle, but he has come out on top and ahead of his teammate. Sergio Perez now, turn 4, trying to go the long way round the outside. His duel continues with Lando Norris as he now goes onto the gravel, and he loses 6 or 7 places as a result of that. That was not what Perez needed. He's down to 10th.
He was never going to give that up, Norris, was he? I was surprised to see Perez try and go the long way round.
At the moment, I thought when they came out of turn 1, Paul, that Perez very much had the upper hand on Lando Norris and would get him into turn 3. But it seems that McLaren is a very fast car in a straight line. That's not what Lewis Hamilton or Valtteri Bottas would be wanting to hear. For the safety car line, you have to get to the safety car line before you can go racing. He might just have done it a bit too soon. Let's head to Sky Race Control. Corinne Chandok, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, guys. It's really critical for Mercedes to clear Lando Norris. They believe on the medium compound tyre they are in better shape than they were on the soft.
In his chase on Sebastian Vettel. What we did see last year, Paul, was a DRS train emerging here, where lots of cars had the benefit of DRS and the positions weren't changing.
Yes, absolutely. Another big mover is Danny Rick. He's found himself in P9, but with the 4 guys on the soft tyres just in front of him, so he's had a very good open, but then you're putting extra slip into the tyres, trying to close that gap on Verstappen. But probably a perfect scenario for Hamilton, just to have Norris in front and not to have to deal with the other Red Bull of Perez.
Who is down, as you can see, in 10th place and chasing after Ricciardo, who's got DRS, and Vettel's got DRS, and Stroll's got a little bit of DRS as well. Norris putting in some good lap times, keeping the Mercedes at bay, very much going your way at the moment.
Yeah, but it's still very early days.
Taking nothing for granted. Christian will be back with you in a little while. First DRS zone there, Lewis Hamilton closes up the gap to Lando Norris. Now, has he got some straight line pace with that DRS? Gives you about 8 miles an hour of extra pace.
No, it's not. I think the biggest nuisance for them is just the straight line speed that McLaren have got. It's a bit like the Red Bull. It is absolutely rocking in a straight line, and that's where a lot of the speed was. And you can see Lewis a bit wide into turn 3, but he's outside the dirty air, and I think almost intentional trying to get that to see where he's going to be. Absolutely, and that's what they've got to focus on. I'm just watching the soft runners. They're down into the 111s now. So Verstappen a 109.1 versus Gasly on a 111.1.
I mean, he's quicker. What drove my risk level to be?
Race once again, he'll be behind Nikita Mazepin after making an early stop. So the information I had this morning, round about lap 15, those soft tyres had start to go away. We're on lap 13 and we've had a safety car, and Tsunoda's come in already.
Yes, he has, and you know they want to make Verstappen. You absolutely just cover what Hamilton's doing. If he stops, you stop, because you've got that margin and you just race him. You forget about Norris. But of course, here's a Ferrari. He's trying to get on top of Checo as well, as we head down into turn 4. We know how quick that Ferrari was following cars last week.
Perez under pressure here. Charles Leclerc has now got a little bit of free air, but Perez has come back.
Brother in F3 actually did those moves yesterday. I wonder if they were chatting about it last night over dinner.
Yeah, I hope his younger brother is okay after a pretty nasty accident in the F3 race today. Lance Stroll has pitted, by the way. Another soft tyre runner coming into the pits a little bit earlier. Yuki Tsunoda still ahead of him. Stroll, Tsunoda behind Gavron, as Daniel Ricciardo is sizing up a move on Sebastian Vettel, who puts his Aston Martin right in the middle of the track and doesn't really want the McLaren getting past him on this particular occasion. Gasly's moved past Mazepin after his early stop, and he is up into 5th place. Others stopping earlier in the race have allowed the McLaren to move up the order. Ricciardo 5th at the moment, and that will do nicely for him, I would imagine.
That's a breath of fresh air for a McLaren. Will absolutely be rubbing their hands
long enough, and have those lap times been good enough for Vettel to get back out onto the track ahead maybe of Gasly and Tsunoda? No, he's going to come out behind both of those, and his teammate Lance Stroll, I think, as well, as he slots back in behind his fellow Aston Martin at the moment. If Hamilton wanted to come in before Lando Norris, he's got half a chance of beating Norris when the McLaren pits. If you're within a couple of seconds of the car in front, the undercut could well work. Hamilton's found pace on yet, but he could get the double whammy here on lap 20 of being overtaken by Hamilton and getting a penalty as well, because Hamilton is going to dive down the inside at turn 4, and maybe Norris's tyres are going off a little bit, because Hamilton had that move done an awful lot earlier than he might have been expecting. It's Norris down into 3rd place.
Challenge him, he's saying he's such a good driver.
Or because he kept him at bay for 20 laps, I don't know, to be honest, but if it is because he kept him at bay, fair play. It's a bit of instant feedback. Maybe lap 21. Lando will like to hear that one again. This is how Hamilton managed to...
Difference of penalties from last year, and of course, on the balance of that, Lewis picked up the penalty, and that's what Lando benefited from to get on the podium, I think, was it?
Yep, absolutely. With Alex Albon, wasn't it, in the closing stages?
Albon, of course, spun, but he probably lost out similar to what Perez did.
I don't know. I think that's harsh.
I mean, this is the shot I wanted to see, to be honest. Where was Perez? How much space did he have? Was he running onto the green? He's in there, isn't he? He's definitely in there, but I want to see hard racing.
Yeah, look, Perez is Leclerc dropping back a touch, because now it's about tyre management for the next 10 laps or so. You don't want to get too close to the car in front. You want to make this plan that Ferrari are on work, and you might need to do that by preserving those tyres just a touch.
In early to avoid getting in that lap traffic.
I'd have thought there might be 6 more words coming soon when he sees everyone on the grandstands. How many T-shirts have I sold? Because everyone's wearing a Max T-shirt.
Yeah, becoming a little bit more difficult now with tyres, but
Understood, Max. Thank you.
When he says a little more difficult,
that means it's not quite as comfortable. He's just done a 9.5. You know, he's managed to match Lewis, still with the car being a bit more difficult, and following Mazepin to get by him.
Do as a rookie. Although, to be fair, first time that he's actually raced at a Formula 1 racetrack that he's raced in Formula 1 before. So he should actually know and understand what he's got to do this week.
That's what's fairly odd about it. And that rule stands for it was about now, and they looked like they were in trouble last week. But that shows you the difference with the track temperature. It is way cooler. I would have been much happier standing on top of the pit garages talking about it. You know, I'm in air conditioning, and it's probably as cold in here as it is outside.
Max Verstappen 11 seconds up on Lewis Hamilton at the moment, and it's just a couple of tenths, 2 or 3 tenths every lap, even though Hamilton's now in free air, that Verstappen has got on the Mercedes. That we've seen the Mercedes before on the softer compound range of Pirelli, Paul, not have the pace to answer their rivals. We're seeing it again today. They came into this race knowing.
Frustrated sitting there, because you see Verstappen where he is. He's coming into turn 1. Sergio Perez, if you think on the first lap, was battling for P2, and he's only up at turn 4.
Yeah, he's had that moment in the gravel, obviously, and he had the battle with Lando Norris, but this is Well, this is where he's stuck at the moment, lapping in the 1 minute dollar. They're going to want to bring Charles Leclerc in pretty quickly to ward off that undercut threat. Lando Norris is coming in at McLaren as well. And Bottas, you would imagine, for Mercedes. He is coming in the pits after losing spots in the opening part of this race. He got a bit caught in no man's land up at turn 3, rather ruined his race. He comes out in 16th, and Lewis Hamilton is told, box, box, you're coming into the pit.
The way your brain works, Crofty, sometimes, doesn't it? As you're being a belly dancer in the commentary box here.
It's the choreography and the way they all move and interchange with each other, a bit like we do in the commentary box from time to time, Karun Chandok.
Lewis Hamilton's been told to look after
Lando Alonso pits as well. You can see Yuki Tsunoda stuck behind the Williams of Nicholas Latifi in 12th place at the moment. Latifi hasn't stopped. Leclerc and Sainz haven't stopped either. Now the look after those tyres.
Expect that to come back, though. Expect that to come back, and there's Verstappen absolutely on cruise mode.
So Verstappen 13 seconds ahead on new hard tyres. He's so far ahead. Yeah,
Slow just releasing. I'm not sure that time that we've got was correct. And Perez has done him. Look, he's managed to get the jump on him, Crofty. So Red Bull unleashing that undercut has helped them.
Just going to say, that's the key here. Watch to see who he comes out around. So behind Ricciardo.
Later on in the race, he's now unleashing some pace. The trouble for him is that Ricciardo and Perez are going with him. So it could get a bit tricky later on in the race for him.
That car's going to be proper racy at the end when the fuel comes out and you can start to push. But of course, Ricciardo and Perez and Leclerc are all on the back of him. And fly off the back of the car, have we? So I just wonder if it's the sheer vibration that he's lost something. Something's debonded. Of course, we're on the back of 3 Grand Prix in a row, so the parts are going to be screaming out for some maintenance. And you've got the composites departments here at the track.
Comes George Russell on Lance Stroll. These two had a decent battle in qualifying yesterday. That's a decent battle out on the track as well, as Russell gets past Stroll and goes up into 13th. He out-qualified the Aston Martin. Oh, take your point.
do your thing, Daniel, do your thing.
And what is his thing? What is Daniel Ricciardo's thing at the moment?
Wheel-to-wheel racing, we know that's what Daniel's good at, and very good encouragement.
For Pierre Gasly at the end. Watch out for Daniel Ricciardo now. Watch out for Sergio Perez and Charles Leclerc as well, because this could get really tasty if Ricciardo and Gasly have a little bit of a tangle. There's a couple of very experienced drivers there waiting up Daniel Ricciardo's progress.
How often you see 4 Formula 1 cars tightly squeezed into a gap like that, Crofty? I love coming to this place just for the pure fact they can follow each other and they get a DRS change, but who's going to jump, who's going to react? And Charles Leclerc is definitely the one that can take the most risk, because even if he runs a little bit wide, he can come back onto the back of it. And this is where Perez has got to get the balance. If I make a move, I've got to make it stick, because the guy behind me will Michael Massey to let them race a bit more. And
I don't think the first one was a penalty. Lando Norris on Sergio Perez, I don't think that is either.
if I was Charles Leclerc, I'd feel hard done by, but at the same point for a race, and I want to see them absolutely go into it like that.
Powered by AWS, the battle forecast here has Valtteri.
They've been updating him on Fernando Alonso. Remember him? We haven't talked about him all day. He is matching Gasly for pace, so this could all get quite tricky for Gasly, because although he'll have fresher tyres, he's going to come out in traffic at the end of the race.
He's now starting to lap a little slower than Yuki Tsunoda, the man who he wants to jump in the pit stops here. Could be worth Ferrari getting him in the next couple of laps or so. Verstappen leads by 18 seconds now from Lewis Hamilton, and Valtteri Bottas about 1.5 seconds behind.
Yeah, and just to pick up what
Charles Leclerc going around the outside, so he's ahead, but Perez is coming back at him. Have they given the penalty this time because Leclerc is a little bit ahead?
Possibly. I mean, absolutely possibly, but
a bit faster and get round Pierre Gasly, and still the AlphaTauri is very much frustrating him. You can see how much Leclerc has lost after that tangle with Sergio Perez. Through turn 6 we go now. How are Gasly's tyres? Pace, is it that the tyres are going off a little bit, but he's starting to be the blockage, isn't he? With Valtteri Bottas what do you do if you're Valtteri Bottas? You get much closer, that might destroy your tyres a little bit, might hurt you. Now been released.
So Checo Perez and Ricciardo still got DRS because he's got the benefit of it, because the detection point was before the pit entry.
Yes, that would have helped Daniel Ricciardo on to turn 5 and 6 as well, because there's nothing to separate these two cars. Round the outside goes Charles Leclerc. You don't overtake there around the outside, and that's why Leclerc goes off into the gravel, and for the second time trying to overtake Sergio Perez, loses ground by heading into the gravel.
Perez is not giving it easy, is he? Absolutely not. The compliance that the Ferrari's got at turn 3 is incredible. He's able to go in there, is not going to put his car in that position either. So the track kind of pushes them into that as well as anything else.
So Lewis has damage. Do not race it for now. We will review.
Bottas told.
So Lando, Bottas has been told not to overtake Hamilton. So that leaves the door open for us.
Second, and get the benefit of the DRS, which will limit the impact that Norris is going to make.
Yeah, very true. But look how Norris has been gaining on Valtteri Bottas.
I don't think I'm going to be able to make this tyre last race.
Yeah, copy, we're looking at options.
Hamilton is not a very confident man.
Up to 20.5 seconds in front, almost to the point where he could do a pit stop and put another set of tyres on and take that fastest lap comfortably.
Yeah, so Hamilton not
curbs Lewis.
Sebastian Vettel pits for his second stop.
You're free to race Lewis.
And they have decided, Mercedes, that by keeping the drivers as they are, look, Hamilton second, Bottas third, the risk is that Norris will catch one or both of them. And if they just let them race and Bottas does get ahead. And here goes Valtteri Bottas on the inside of Lewis Hamilton, moves up into second place. Hamilton doesn't want to lose too much pace here, so doesn't want to slow down, because we can see Lando Norris right behind him. Bottas. But honestly, as Norris has now got DRS, but so has Hamilton. Actually, what Mercedes need, Bottas sets the fastest lap. They kind of need Bottas to be giving Lewis Hamilton a bit of DRS advantage to help him against Norris, as there goes Yuki Tsunoda. Norris, he was fourth, he's not going to drop any lower. But is he going to be under a lot of pressure from Sergio Perez, I wonder, towards the end of this race? Perez under pressure from Ricciardo and Leclerc. So he's got 10 seconds to come then, Sergio Perez.
Pad knock off turn 1.
All happening on the team radio.
Yeah, knock off. So essentially the pistons, as you go across the curbs, it just pushes the pads back. And it's a bit strange, a bit like your normal road car. It would be a bit soft, and then you kind of feel...
Ever since the opening lap here, he's got Valtteri Bottas in second, ahead of Lando Norris. Hamilton is in fourth. Perez, who's got 5 seconds, I might have said 10, it's a 5-second penalty to serve at the end of this race. And then Daniel Ricciardo...
able to, and Verstappen's just taking the fastest lap back.
Again.
And Pierre Gasly was in there as well, as is Carlos Sainz.
That is another penalty for Yuki Tsunoda for crossing the line at the pit entry again. Right.
We want this Grand Prix to go a bit longer, don't we?
Once, Yuki, we can forgive. Twice, what are you doing? It's ruining his race as well.
So Carlos Sainz takes a 1:8.01, and then Max Verstappen beats that by a 1:07.992. And he's confident around here to make a dive, and Max Verstappen just does another fastest lap at 1:07.8. So he's looking very comfortable up front. Hamilton, he's still not even able to match what Bottas is able to do on that fresh set of tyres.
No, he's
on
not.
that extra pit stop, hasn't he?
But he has, of course, got damage to the car, though. Would probably vote for, but he's had a very easy, comfortable afternoon, it seems. They'd certainly vote for Max Verstappen. Where would your vote go for at the end?
I don't think Max is pitting. He's obviously feeling...
Pit confirm, please, Max. Box, pit confirm.
It's risky what they're doing, but they're obviously feeling...
But Alonso might fancy his chances to pick up an opportune move, although Russell is holding him off as it stands, but it's very, very close between the Williams and the Alpine.
You were asking me about driver of the day. I don't think many people are going to support Sergio Perez, that's one thing for sure. And here's Fernando Alonso on your screen.
He's going around the outside. He's doing what Charles Leclerc tried to do, and George Russell is doing what... The losing time is coming back at him, and Max has just set another fastest lap of the race, and he is now, as you could probably just see in the background, right behind these two. There he is, and he's going to lap them.
And Alonso's going to have to give up, isn't he? And of course,
Red Bull Ring, just about a year ago, the anniversary of that particular race, as George Russell moves over. Max Verstappen actually goes onto the marbles to get past George there.
Yeah, and George did that so he gets DRS, but of course Alonso's going to be very close to him. but they've both got it, and you can see that rear wing open of Russell as well.
Yeah, a Sainz past Leclerc to have a go at Daniel Ricciardo on fresher tyres, I wonder.
And Sergio Perez is still opening that gap. He's up at 6.2 seconds to Ricciardo, so he's got another 4 to get, and he's secured that position even with the penalty he could pick up.
Russell completes another lap in the points for Williams.
And a little bit further, Russell's going to have to give him the space, because that's what the stewards are taking as a stance.
We're on lap 65 of 71. Carlos Sainz gets past Charles Leclerc. The two Ferraris point in Formula One since Germany 2019 with Robert Kubica. And we are down to the closing stages now as he tries to hang on. 5 laps to go. Russell and Alonso a lap down, of course. They've been lapped by the race straighted again, but really good traction out of turn 3. He's a lot closer to George Russell to make the move towards turn 4. Russell will try and defend, but I think he knows that it is a hopeless task, because this time Fernando Alonso could get the move done way before they got to the corner, and that stout defence has ended in disappointment. Behind Lewis Hamilton at the moment. This is the closest battle, 4-6. McLaren against Ferrari. This time it's Ricciardo against Sainz, not Ricciardo against Leclerc. I have to say, Ricciardo's driven a super race today, starting 13th. Max Verstappen has started his final lap. Victory for him has never been in doubt since lights out and since the safety car restart. Sainz has been making his way through the field. Oh, he's got the job done on Daniel Ricciardo. Carlos Sainz puts his Ferrari up into 6th place, and that will be very good news indeed for Ferrari in their fight with McLaren in the Constructors' Championship. They saw he conquered. Max Verstappen wins the Austrian Grand Prix, and once again he's crushed the opposition at the Red Bull Ring. What a victory for Max Verstappen. It's going to be Valtteri Bottas for Mercedes coming home in second. Former teammates, and they might want to have a little chat about that at the end of this race.
I wonder if Raikkonen's just been caught off guard. I don't think Vettel did anything wrong there, to be honest.
No. Well, he was ahead, wasn't he?
No damage.
The driver in 2021 led both races here at the Red Bull Ring from start to finish, and he's won the last 3 races from pole position. Max